is the latest World Champion Checkmate Challenge, and I'm featuring Boris Spassky, who won the title of World Champion in 1969. And this game is from that match, Spassky with white against Tigran Petrosian. How did Spassky initiate a deadly checkmating attack from here? So this was Spassky's second shot at the title. He'd been defeated in 1966 by Tigran Petrosian, the world champion. And he had a second go in 1969. And by that stage, Spassky had managed to get the measure of Petrosian. Spassky was really on fantastic form, just generally in his tournament play. And Spassky not only matched Petrosian in the long strategic battles, but he managed to create more dynamic games, have more dynamic positions on the board, and that is where Spassky excelled. He was a far more rounded player than Petrosian. And, well, we're going to see it in this game that Spassky was a deadly attacking player. Spassky said about himself, "When I am in form, my style is a little bit stubborn, almost brutal. Sometimes I feel a great spirit of fight, which drives me on." He certainly had that. He was a survivor of the Second World War and the terrible privations that many suffered in the Soviet Union at that time. You know, he was born in 1937, and that whole generation of Soviet players that survived the Second World War, they were made of really strong stuff. Players like, Korchnoi is a very good example of those players as well. That whole golden generation of post-war players in the Soviet Union that were really incredibly strong. So let's take a look at this game, the 19th game of the 1969 match. E5. Played by Spassky. He's really going for it. You could play in a slower way, manoeuvring the knights over, perhaps to the king side, but E5 just takes the game by the scruff of the neck. This has to be taken. And now knight E4, so this is his way of throwing more pieces on the attack. If that knight is taken, then rook takes bishop, followed by queen G7 mate. That's pretty clear. And if this knight is taken, let's have a quick look, then rook takes knight. And if pawn takes rook, then the queen slams down on G8 mate. And, well, anyway, rook H6 check is threatened. Petrosian played knight H5. And now queen G6 is the most forceful move played by Spassky. Now, in the game, pawn takes knight was played. But knight f4 is obviously a serious move, trying to block out white's pieces. But this is met by a beautiful refutation. Let's have a look. Rook takes knight. And now simply knight f3. Very calm move. If bishop c6 looks like the most obvious move, then the knight comes into g5, threatening mates. And knight takes, again, mate threatened on h7, and the only thing that black can do is give up the queen. But this is absolutely hopeless. White is going to crash through. The combination of bishop, queen and rook is too much. Coming back to this position, there's a surprising defence for black, and that's queen b6, and white has to be a little bit careful. The queen looks at the rook on g1, so obviously preventing the knight coming to g5. And if, let's say, rook g2 threatening knight g5, then queen b5 threatens a check, deadly check on on f1, and also queen f5. But here there is a wonderful move discovered by Geller in the pre-computer age, and that's rook g5. The idea is that it stops queen b5, and then white can carry on with the attack. So, for example, after bishop c6, knight f6, basically white's pieces are just thrown against the king, threatening mate. And if bishop e4, then queen h6, followed by rook g8 checkmate. Fantastic idea, rook g5. So let's come back. So queen g6 has just been played. Petrosian took the knight, and then knight g5 was the final move for the game, threatening queen h7. Here Petrosian resigned. If that's taken, then queen g5, sorry, queen h5 check, a check on f7, and now a very familiar idea, just swinging the rook up the board, threatening rook h3 mate. And if e5, then that stops white's rook coming to h3, but it also opens up the line of this bishop here, which means that when white plays queen h5, that's actually checkmate because the bishop covers the g8 square. Absolutely brutal from Spassky. How many other players succeeded in defeating Petrosian in just 24 moves? If you're not a subscriber, then do click on the subscribe button. If you want to see more of these World Champion Checkmate challenges, then do click on the playlist. And if you would like to support us, then do support us through PayPal or Patreon.com. Thanks very much.